Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all, volume 103 of the NFC East Mixtape, which you can listen to on any one of SB Nation's NFC East blog podcast networks. I'm struggling to speak because my face, not speech because my face is being attacked by allergies. You can also watch this on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel, the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. Make sure to check out all of the NFC East content all throughout the SB Nation universe. I, from Blog and the Boys, am Ochoa. He, from Bleeding Green Nation, is Brandon Lee Gowton. He is also your flight attendant for this flight. If you are watching it on YouTube, you had some of those vibes going on, Brandon.
What do you mean? Oh, because of
Like
my hand instructions. Yeah.
Yeah, like the pre-flight, like, fasten or keep your whatever. You ever been on a flight where they're like, did anybody lose $100 bill? And then everybody looks up and they're like, now that I have your attention. And then everybody's like, got
him.
Yeah.
No,
Have you ever been
I
on
guess
a flight
not.
like that? How's your day?
It's going good, RJ. I'm going to see Blink-182 later tonight as we record this on Tuesday, May 23rd. Staying over at my friend Zach's and Nicole's place in outside of DC. So shout out to them for hosting me, and excited to see the rock show tonight.
What's your favorite Blink-182 song?
That's tough. Like song. I mean, there's a lot of different vibes. If we're gonna say probably most played, I mean, you're talking about like, an obvious one, probably like, like Feeling This or something like that.
Yeah. All the things she said. Like, I mean, like, it's fine to go chalk.
You mean all the small things?
Whatever. Again, my head is under incredible duress this morning.
It's the off season for us too, right?
Yeah. Like I said, my face is under an extreme attack. I feel very swollen in my face. It's allergy season.
Wow.
So it's tough. I feel like I sound that way. I'm also fighting off a sneeze mid-sentence. But yeah, all the small things. Again, like my point was going to be like with the like amazing band, I feel like it's okay to go chalk. Like I feel like sometimes you want to go off the beaten path, but like they're hits because they're hits. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and unlike some other bands who might have deep cuts, a lot of Blink songs are only like 2 or 3 minutes anyway. They're short, so they're kind of like they almost all could be singles in terms of like their catchiness and their it's pop punk. It's made to be popular and fun. That's all I've got.
I'm not a big concert goer. Have I ever told you? I don't really like concerts. Like I think I've been to maybe 3.
I don't love them, but like I feel like if you like a band, I like a band, I'm gonna go see them. And I've never seen Blink-182 when it comes to their full original lineup. I saw them back in 2016 when they had Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio filling in for Tom DeLonge, but Tom DeLonge is now back in the band for the second time after their second breakup. So I'm excited to see the original lineup.
That's cool. Very happy for you. Very excited for you. If anybody likes or does not like concerts, let us know with the hashtag mixtape concert. Kind of an appropriate hashtag, maybe the most appropriate one we've ever had with regards to the mixtape. What we're going to do today is your idea. I suggested like 6 ideas that Brandon shot down. So I just wanted to be clear, like if this episode sucks, it's on you. We are recording it a bit earlier.
That's not fully true. I did say one of those I think we should do in the future.
Yeah, but you said it because you have some like personal bias involved there. But anyway, we'll get to that one down the road. I do think we should mention, because I don't know if you guys talked about it on BGN Radio. We haven't really talked about it at BTB. This will be really old news by the time this episode drops, but the Thursday night football flex scheduling thing, we like to look at the tiny little quirks of schedules. I talked about this on Monday Football Monday with Jeremy Reisman and Rachel Prevet from BGN Radio. But this stinks. Like this sucks. Like I'm really mad about this. Like I'm really not a fan of this whatsoever. I can't imagine that you are. But I mean, this just is dumb.
There ended up being more time, I guess, than I thought in terms of like it needs 28 days notice, right, to flex those games.
Correct.
I think originally they wanted way less than that. I think
they wanted like half. They wanted like 15 days. Yeah.
So like I like that part. I don't like that they did it at all. Correct. I didn't see the need for it. But if they were going to do it, at least they made it so that you have like almost a month to adjust now. I know that for some people that's still not enough time and not a great outcome. But the first proposal, wanting it to change on such short notice, was just like downright untenable. Like, that's not even just realistic at all. This one is still annoying and not good, but it's at least somewhat more acceptable relative to that. So which is probably why they leak out that first one and then they come up with this. So then it makes you feel like, oh, at least it wasn't as bad as it possibly could have been. So there I am falling into the trap of that.
I saw Florio had a tweet that was I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, there's something kind of not cool about the NFL releasing the full schedule. What was like 3 weeks ago. And I'm sure there were a lot of
Making such
people
a big
who,
deal of it. Primetime
right.
event. Get your
And
tickets
then
now. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like there were a lot of people who probably bought tickets for this window of time is basically the month of December. People who bought tickets for that and did all the other like arrangements or whatever. And that's the thing. Like I'm not the only person who's ever like been to an NFL game, but like just using my own
Is
personal
that true?
experience, like this would stink, dude. Like imagine you make like all this effort, and it's not just like the football game that you're going to, but like if you're going to a city or something like that, you're planning, maybe you're going to go to a concert, you know what I mean, like on a Saturday
Yep.
night or whatever. Like you're going to go to some restaurant or something you've really been wanting to try.
College
I
football
went and
game
saw
potentially.
Yeah, like I went and saw a Bruins game when I saw the Cowboys in New England and stuff like that. So like you're tailoring your entire trip around the scheduled time, and then it doesn't happen or it gets moved and adjusted. Like that would really stink. And so I feel for people who are inevitably going to have to go through that.
Who will be the first NFC East team to experience this?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I did want to like try to guess. And I talked about this with Jeremy. I don't know if you listened to Monday Football Monday. Sounds like you were traveling.
I
So
didn't
maybe
get a chance to
you,
listen yet. I'm
right.
behind because I'm
That's
down in
super hurtful,
Virginia.
but whatever. So the Thursday night football slate for weeks 13 through 17, which are the games that are eligible to be flexed out of, kind of stinks. Like, I mean, you can kind of see why they want to protect themselves here. So the first game is actually the Seahawks in Dallas. There's very little chance that the NFL flexes out of that. Obviously, that's 7 days after Thanksgiving. Week 14, Thursday night football, Brandon. We've got the Patriots in Pittsburgh. Do you really want to watch that game?
No.
That week, the Eagles are in Dallas on Sunday Night Football, so that game's not moving. You know what I'm saying? The Giants, for what it's worth, play the Packers on Monday Night Football. So again, they're not moving either. Week 15, Thursday Night Football, so eligible to be moved out. We've got the Chargers in Vegas. Boring. Like, do you really care about that?
I love it.
That next week,
Love that game.
we've got the Eagles in Seattle. That's a noon game right now. Like, couldn't you see that maybe being so? Like, let's live in that example. Say you find out a month out that the week after playing a road Sunday night game, the Eagles then have to travel across the country for a Thursday night football game because they got flexed in. That would stink. Yeah. Like beyond all of the other things, like there's so many things about this that stink.
That's it's incredibly unfair. A really big disadvantage to the Eagles.
And it's really unfair. Like there's both fair and unfair, or there's no fair. But like, imagine you play the Eagles the next week, like after the Seahawks game that we're talking about hypothetically here. So now you were going to get the Eagles on the normal week, right? Like coming off of a Sunday. So while granted they have to go through the tough Thursday game, now they get a week and a half to prepare for you. You know what I'm saying? So like now you've compromised that game and the call it Chargers Raiders game. The teams that were gonna get them off of a week and a half now get them off of a standard week. You know what I mean? The little advantage that they had or they were going to be up against is now mitigated. Like, it's just stupid. I don't like this whatsoever.
Yeah, the Giants wouldn't like that because the Eagles and Giants play on Christmas, so the Eagles would have that mini bye going into potentially a big divisional game. Although, I think the Eagles Seahawks, like that's a disadvantage in a game that could be pretty important for playoff seeding. So, it kind of works both ways.
The Seahawks are the true birds of the NFC, by the way. Is anybody doing the bird gauntlet this year?
What does that mean? What are you even saying? What kind of comment is that?
Have you never heard of that before?
What?
That was the thing. I think
no, not
Cowboys...
the gauntlet thing, just the true bird thing. What does that like?
Oh, yeah. Like if I say the birds, I'm talking about the Seahawks, not the Eagles.
No, I mean, this is bad. This is really bad trolling, uninspired trolling by you.
Anyway, tell us what we're talking about today. This was your thing. So again, if it sucks, it's on you.
Well, I forget. So maybe we should just wrap this. No, I propose that we talk about the top breakout player candidates from each team. And in addition to that, because, can't only just be about the positive. We have to bring it down a bit. The top step back players from each team in the NFC East. So I think it's important to do some table setting here. And this is a little bit along the lines of overrated, underrated, but not quite. But same kind of disclaimer needs to be said where you can't take a step back if you were never actually good. Like my example that I just brought up to Zach, because he was like, "Hey, what are you guys going to talk about in the mixtape today?" And I was like, "So let's say Jalen Rager, for example, was still on the Eagles. He's not a step back candidate. He's just bad. Like you're not stepping back from anything." Um, and likewise, if you're already established and you're great, I don't think you can break out again because you've already broken out. So we're trying to find the next great players in the division is the goal, and the players who kind of might be on their way out.
So Micah Parsons can't break out, to your point.
Unless
Um,
if you can pick him, but you're picking him to have like a 25 sack season, or you're
yeah, you've got to
something
break, like you
ridiculous.
have to do something contextually that is breaking out relative to where you currently are.
Hmm.
Okay, are we ready to start?
Sure.
So we're gonna do breakouts and step backs. Did you
Yep.
pick the term step back because you've got the NBA Finals on your brain? Step back.
No, I did a little bit of gambling though from our friends at DraftKings,
Mm.
and no one
Took the
cares about that.
Nuggets. Took Jokic.
I actually have have been betting on the Nuggets and it's been working out for me. So nothing too big. Kind of playing with house money at this
I
point,
think
but
it's
it's
amazing
fun.
that they had never swept a series ever. That's amazing to me. Like
It's
that's
really hard to do.
I just but like over how many years? Like that's just wild.
It's just
I
so
mean,
hard though. You just
like
don't really. I mean, we've
I
seen it
can
in
buy the no
these
finals thing,
playoffs.
but like I
Sure.
also thought it was really poetic that they made their first NBA finals ever on the day that Carmelo retired. It was just like really nice
Yeah.
poetry.
Sure.
Okay, so let's start. Will LeBron James retire this offseason, Brandon?
No, he's not. He wants to
I
play
know.
with his
Of
son
course
at
he
some
is.
point. It's very
I
obvious.
know.
Philadelphia Eagles. We'll start there. I think there are some very obvious breakout candidates in terms of like media. You're going to see a lot of lists that are like the top breakout candidates. Have you already seen some of these? And this is actually one of the ones I've seen. N'Kobe Dean, RJ. I think he's
Not hard to
primed
break out.
to break out. Huh?
Not hard to break out. Like again, relative to last year. That's my point. Like, you
Also,
know,
just because of his opportunity at that position where the Eagles don't have much at linebacker. So he's going to get like, it's not like last year where they had some established veterans and, he might not just see the field because he gets beat out. Not even necessarily he was looking bad, just because there were better alternatives that were in front of him. And this year, there's like pretty much no one in front of him other than maybe Nicholas Morrow. But I mean, still, I think N'Kobe Dean, the Eagles really need him to break out as part of the pick here, because if they do not have that, then they're going to have maybe the worst linebackers in the division. Not that it's a great division of linebackers, but N'Kobe Dean, everyone thought he was a steal last year. I've kind of pumped the brakes on that a little bit from the standpoint that he fell for some kind of reason. I don't know what that reason is fully, but I think it's not like, I'm not to the point where I think N'Kobe Dean's going to come in and be like an Pro Bowl player from the jump. But I do think he can be a nice starter at linebacker, which would constitute a breakout from him after mostly being a backup last year. And yeah, I think there's the potential for him to do it.
I think that is a good pick if you're playing the game that we are, right? Like again, if you're looking at variables and things like that, like who can break out, like it's again the floor is or the bar is very 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 low. You know what I'm saying? So like you don't have to do a lot, and I think there tends to be like name fatigue, like people like we talk about like flex scheduling, like national broadcasts, like they love to kind of hit the hits. You know what I mean? Like they'll talk about like the big name guys, but they love to kind of talk about that diamond in the rough. So you could like couldn't you see like the Eagles on Sunday Night Football and like Chris Collinsworth going on like a little spiel about N'Kobe Dean and like he was breaking down his tape like during the week, whatever. Like you could kind of see that and that like elevates a person. I think that's a really good pick. So kudos to you. Again, playing
Collinsworth
the game.
also really likes like a specific skill that someone does, I feel like. And
Right.
N'Kobe Dean kind of had a reputation for being a good blitzing linebacker, even though he's an inside backer. He's not like coming off the edge in college. So I could see, N'Kobe Dean coming on a blitz or two and being like, yeah, that's what he did at Georgia. He came on those blitzes. So
Yeah. That's true. And then like that's like again, like that's a like a port into the Georgia thing. You know what I'm saying? And like you could see like somebody taking it and then being like, and I tell you, these Eagles, they got all them dogs. You
players.
know,
Yeah.
and then like you could see like Combs being, I thought I saw Kirby Smart on the sideline over there. You know what I mean? Like it's just like the
You
narrative
can
kind of
also
writes
see the
itself.
graphic too, like, or you could just draw it with the telestrator, like, oh, this guy's a Georgia player. This guy's a
Right.
Georgia
Oh,
player. He's
that's
drawing
so gonna
circles
happen.
around everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready for my breakout? I think we should
Sure.
like kind of okay. So mine is also a Georgia Bulldog. And again,
Wow.
playing the game, low bar to clear kind of thing. This is a more unique one, but DeAndre Swift.
Hmm.
Because DeAndre Swift succeeding in
Interesting.
and I think that the level of success is not even necessarily going to be like super large from a volume standpoint, but it will feed the like how we did it again, how we pulled him off. Can you believe how he traded like nothing, pennies on the dollar for him? I'm sure you've like studied this throughout the time he's been an Eagle, but off the top of your head, do you know his career high in rushing touchdowns?
DeAndre Swift's career high in rushing touchdowns
Yeah, in a
is,
single season.
I'm going to say 8.
It is 8. That was his rookie season in 2020.
I'm looking
Each
at it
of
right now, so I'm
Okay,
cheating.
well, never mind. Then each of the last 2 years, he's had 5. He has not topped 600. His career high in rushing yards is 617. Like
Hmm.
pretty low
Yeah.
production, and that's not
Especially
like
relative to name value.
that's what I'm saying. Like he is a super hot commodity. And we look at Miles Sanders the last 4 years, which I think is an important kind of like context level here. Last year, 1,269 yards. Nice. I know. 11 touchdowns. Every single year that Miles Sanders has been an Eagle, he has had at least 754 rushing yards, which again would easily be a DeAndre Swift's career high. So I could see DeAndre Swift having like a quote unquote career year and that being an important part of the analysis here. My face is under attack. It's really difficult to speak. But yeah, so my answer is DeAndre Swift. Like again, I think that we could see. I don't want to spoil my Giants pick, but we could see some regression on that side of things with regards to the running back position. And running back is kind of the hot name. You know what I mean? Like you could see DeAndre Swift being like, I don't know, like RB7 in
Mm.
fantasy, and that being like a big part of his name value. I would presume that, especially now that he's been paid, that the Eagles want to utilize Jalen Hurts a little bit less down near the goal line, and I would see DeAndre Swift maybe like vulturing some of those touchdowns, so to speak. Like I could see his name really being boosted by things.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick by you. I think it's a little hard for me to believe from the standpoint of like that he's going to explode from a volume perspective, from the standpoint that the Eagles don't really use their running backs that heavily, like any specific one too much. Also, like I guess like anytime you get a running back, it's like, well, our offensive line's going to be way better. It's like, well, the Lions had one of the best offensive lines in the league. Like now, the difference there again is that you have Jalen Hurts instead of Jared Goff, which I think is a big deal when it comes to helping your running back. And I think Miles Sanders and other Eagles running backs have certainly benefited from his mobility. But um, I think the Eagles running back position as a whole has some real like boom or bust potential. I think there's a
Right.
path where like Rashad Penny stays healthy. He looks like he might be like the best running back in the league next year. Like there's a path. I don't think it's likely in terms of him staying healthy because he's never done it. But like that's the ceiling of him, is he could be one of the best players at his position. DeAndre Swift could also be up there if maybe Penny gets hurt and Swift stays healthy and he's the guy and he's thriving. But there's also a really low floor. There's also an outcome where like Penny doesn't stay healthy. Swift looks like, oh, there's a reason why the Lions moved on from this guy time and time again, and never, like, he's just fine at best, or he's making mistakes. And then what do the Eagles have behind those two guys? I mean, not a ton. Boston Scott's not like a full-time guy. Kenny Gainwell did some nice things in the playoffs last year, but that's kind of a smaller sample size. Maybe it's just kind of, he doesn't really materialize into anything. So I think there's a really low floor for the Eagles running back room, but there's also a high ceiling. So it's going to be
But if you
very.
my overall point is, if you took all 22 Eagle starters and you like laid out the like distance to gain, so to speak, to become the best player at their position, the smallest distance belongs to DeAndre Swift. You know what I'm saying? Like
I
if
would say
everyone's starting at
Penny.
0, I mean, whatever. Like either way, like that's my point. Like it's easy. Like if you want to be the best player in the NFL at your respective position, like right now the position to play is running back. That's my point. You know what I'm saying? So, um, yeah, that's my thought.
Last thing on the backs is the usage will be interesting and factoring into the Swift part here, because I think there's debate. Like if both of those guys are healthy, who's going to lead Eagles in touches, I think it'd be Swift, but I said touches there. If you're looking at carries, I think Penny is going to be the guy. Although it could totally depend on like how they're playing and who is. I don't like hot hand. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to use that term when it comes to running backs. How does that make hot hand? I like hot feet
I
better.
mean,
Who is the hot feet?
you put the ball in their hands, like you know what I mean. But
Yeah, but like
where
that
does that
doesn't.
phrase
It's a
come
running
from?
back.
Like,
I don't
but
know.
what originally had the hot hand? You know what I'm
The
saying? Like,
quarterback, maybe.
I guess so. I mean, but
Like that makes sense.
who puts the ball on their feet though? Like you know what I mean? Like whatever.
Yeah, but they're using their
Step
feet
back
to run.
candidates.
What's the title?
Speaking of
What's the
feet,
title
step
of
back candidates.
what's the
Step back
title of their
candidates.
job? Running
Step
back.
back candidates.
Hot
Should I
legs.
go first? Should I go first?
Yeah.
So again, playing the game here, like relative to who they are, their standing in the NFL, their current overall assessment, et cetera, et cetera. I thought about going Jason Kelsey because like it's so difficult to
You hate
continually
Jason
be.
Kelsey.
No, I actually really like him. That's what bothers me about him. Like I hate how likable he is. But I mean, you get my point. Like it's so difficult to be that good
You're
over and
betting
over and
against a
over and
guy
over again.
who
I'm
has
I'm
been
not picking Jason Kelsey. That's my point.
okay.
I'm
4
my pick is
All-Pros
going to
in the
be
last 5 years.
my pick is going to be Lane Johnson because for similar
Wow.
reasons. Like I think it's difficult to hold that line. It becomes like the battle of attrition wears on you. And I certainly don't want any player to get injured, but like injuries are a part of his deal. You know what I'm saying? Like I could see like at the
Sure.
end of next season, people being like, it's just like right now, a conversation that people are having within the Cowboys world is about like, is it worth having Tyron Smith around because you never know when that time bomb is going to go off, right? Like it makes it difficult to plan. And like in a vacuum, it's like, yeah, well, of course, I'd rather have Tyron Smith than not have him, whatever. I think there's a similar plight with Lane Johnson. Like again, no Eagles fan would rather not have him than have him, but the lack of stability associated with him, I think will be a part of the overall narrative even more so after this coming season. Kudos to him. I mean, the fact that he's come back from all these injuries and he's an impressive human being and all sorts of things. But again, playing the game, that's my pick.
I don't think it's crazy in a like if I'm trying to support your point, it would be that, aging offensive lineman is a concern, injury history, like you pointed out. I also think from a mental standpoint, not commenting on his mental health, but in terms of like he's talked about openly, like last season, he was talking about, yeah, I'm probably going to retire in maybe 2 years or maybe I have 2 years left. So I think, and he's considered retirement before. So maybe that he reaches a point where it's just like his heart isn't in it anymore sooner than he expects. And that's not a critique, by the way, too. If your heart's not in it, then that's just, how things are going. But Lane is not someone I'd bet against. My pick for this is Darius Slay, who people will say I am a hater of.
Yeah, you are a hater.
I think he didn't play his best ball down the stretch last year. He started hot, and I think he didn't finish as well. And I honestly wrote down in my notes, I put like Darius Slay or James Bradbury. I believe in Bradbury more, though I genuinely do. But from that standpoint of why I wrote that, I mean, Darius Slay turned 32 earlier this year, and James Bradbury's over 30. It just seems like, cornerback is going to be a position where that age might start to be felt sooner than later and not age as well as some other positions. So I don't necessarily know which one of those guys might step back. I would think I'm going to bet on Slay just because in part he's older. And I think I was more of a believer in Bradbury's season last year anyway. So I think it's very possible that one of those two guys steps back because they're aging at a position where I think, it's like, I think that position doesn't necessarily age well as others do.
I do think that the regression that is being discussed a lot that could, would, will, might, may come for the Eagles could be most felt at the corner position specifically, right? Like,
Yeah.
like to bring up Blaine Johnson, like that's a position that has withstood, the test of time, and generally does like across different teams, right? Like we're talking about the Eagles right now, but my only like clap back to you would be like, well, you kind of hate Darius Slay anyway, so like it's difficult to like step back from like what you think already kind of sucks. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he made like a
He'd
Pro
have to
Bowl
really
the
implode.
last couple of years, though. I'm saying like, he doesn't make that. Also, I should mention that I don't know how big of a difference this is, but Slay did give a lot of credit to former Eagles defensive backs coach Denard Wilson, who isn't back now. So maybe that's a factor too. They lose their defensive backs coach, and that plays in a role. And for all of his faults, Jonathan Gannon, one thing he has done well in, if you look at his track record, like generally speaking, or at least more often than not, the defensive backs that he's been involved with have had good years under his coaching at some level. I don't know how much he's responsible for that, especially when he's the defensive coordinator, but like that's an area. Now, I think you could say the same thing about Sean Desai, but we'll see. I think that's an area where there could be some kind of decline there.
My nose is just like running like crazy. This is I
Suffering.
hate this. This is really awful. Okay, are we ready to move on to the Cowboys?
Yes.
Breakthrough. You go first.
My breakout player for the Cowboys is a very trendy one, so you already know what I'm going to say after I said that. I think
Wait, if it's very trendy, is it Sam Williams? Is that your pick?
no, he was another candidate, but I think everyone's looking at Jake Ferguson there, in part because the opportunity's there. It's almost like the Nakobe Dean theory here, where
they spent a second round pick on a tight end.
But here's the thing. Having seen the Eagles do that multiple times with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, those guys don't come in and be instant difference makers. Tight end is a position, especially relative to other ones, that takes time for guys to really factor in the league. And now maybe that's offset a little bit by the fact that Luke Schoonmaker is like 70 years old as a rookie, but I think there's still going to be a learning curve there. And I think Jake Ferguson has the opportunity in front of him, and small sample size alert, but he performed, or at least had some good, like positive
ridiculously
indicators.
Small sample size.
Ridiculously small sample size, 23 targets, but he didn't have a drop, and he had 133.3 passer rating when targeted. So maybe there is something there with him. It's kind of more of like, a long shot. If we're placing bets on this, I think the odds would be very favorable in terms of being able to win a lot of money. It's certainly like a big projection here. It's a big leap of faith. But I think when you look at opportunity and looking at the fact that he's not going to have to really carry the offense in any way, because you have CeeDee Lamb, you added Brandon Cooks. I think Michael Gallup, so he would be a prime example of like who you couldn't pick, because Gallup he already did have the step back last year. Like he's the player that actually happened to. You could actually say maybe he would break out from his slump from last year. But I do think just by being such a kind of forgotten about option, he might benefit from that and not be like one of the best tight ends in the NFL. But I think the drop off from Dalton Schultz to him might not be as big as people think.
I think that's more of a testament to like the tight end position than it is to like, I don't think it's difficult to replace Dalton Schultz, not because Jake Ferguson's awesome, but because I don't think it's difficult. Like that, we've seen Dak Prescott have a lot of success with different tight ends like over the course of his career, which has been really interesting. Like Jason Witten, obviously early on, he kind of made Blake Jarwin a little bit, the little kind of cup of coffee that he had with the Cowboys. And then Dalton Schultz, obviously, like Dalton inherited that role, and it was really weird. I wrote something the week of the draft that really interested me about the tight ends in general. So this was the Cowboys tight ends last year. And again, admittedly, very small sample size for Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, who was an undrafted free agent the Cowboys found last year at tight end. So these are the Cowboys tight ends last year. This is yards before the catch per reception. So basically how far they ran down the field before they caught the ball effectively. And so Dalton Schultz, 6.5. So there's a lot of like, moving a little bit, turning around, catching the ball, hopefully some yak associated with that. Peyton Hendershot, 5.1. I want you to guess Jake Ferguson's. Again, very small sample size in terms of number of catches, but yards before the catch per reception.
9.9.
2.6. Super like, curl route, not even curl, like drag routes, you know what I'm saying? Like all just right near the line of scrimmage. And that's the exact opposite of what Luke Schoonmaker is like thought to be for the Cowboys. And that's what I think they want. That's what I think they're going after. I think they want a vertical threat. So I agree that like the opportunities there, like I could totally see Jake Ferguson having like 8 touchdowns, like just, and having kind of like the name I always think about is like LaRon Robinson for the Cowboys in 2011. Like that could totally happen. And maybe that like meets your criteria, but that wouldn't be my pick personally. But yeah, good job. You messed up. It's okay.
Who is your pick? Let's get to it.
Well, I thought about a number of players, obviously. I thought about going Mike McCarthy, honestly, but I didn't want to get like too in the weeds here. That being said, I'm going to go with Mozzie Smith because there is like an opportunity there. Yeah, I mean, and like I could totally. We talked about like envisioning what Chris Collinsworth could say. Like I could totally see like a Sunday night game where the Cowboys are obviously on and everyone's talking about them, and then like just tweets like filling my timeline that are like Mozzie Smith is everywhere. Like he's just
Mm.
clogging the run, whatever. And I mean, if any, the Cowboys have historically, and I think they get a little bit too much credit for this, but like people are like, oh well, they draft really well in the first round. Yeah, you should. Like, like if you can't hit your first round pick, like that's a problem. You know what I mean? But their first round
Mm.
picks have come in and done really well every year, just about. I mean, save for obviously Taco
Taco
Charlton, fellow
Charlton.
Michigan man. But I
Mm.
mean, the fact that he gets to play along a defensive line that features the likes of Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence, like the opportunity is going to be there. And I'm inclined to give the Cowboys this benefit. They saw an athlete in Micah Parsons that Penn State, who I know you love. By the way, I think it's kind of hypocritical that you don't support Penn State because you're Mister like you have to root for the teams that you are near and where you're from, and you don't support them.
Penn
What do
State
you have
is
to say
very.
about that?
First of all, I don't like hate Penn State. Second of all,
You troll
it's
them when
not
they lose, though. That's
close to
hating.
Philadelphia.
It's
That's
Pennsylvania,
that's
though.
not. But it's like, yeah, but come on, like Pittsburgh and Philly are
No,
not the
no,
same
no.
thing. No, it's not.
Micah
It's
Parsons
really
isn't
not.
from Philadelphia, and you're over here like, oh well, he's like blah 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 blah. So I'm saying like
I think I've said
a
this
little
to
bit
you before. The distance between Pittsburgh and Philly is like the difference between Philly and Boston.
anyway. But the Cowboys saw an athlete in Micah Parsons that Penn State didn't utilize the way the Cowboys do, obviously, and that a similar sort of thing has happened here, and that I think has happened with Luke Schoonmaker a little bit at Michigan. Like they're focused on playing a certain type of football that worked for them in the way that it did, or didn't, however you want to define that. And so I think Mozzie Smith is the player that I think
Hmm.
has a breakthrough. Like I could see Mozzie Smith like again fulfilling the narrative of like Cowboys first round picks, et cetera, et cetera. Like the opportunity for the story is there.
I think it's gonna be hard from a standpoint of I think he could play well, but it's gonna be hard for that to really materialize into hype from the standpoint of his aesthetic. Talking about a guy here who had what, half a sack like I just don't know that even if he's playing his role well, I don't know that the flash is gonna be there to kind of constitute a breakout. So I think that could be tough from that perspective. Also, by the way, you had mentioned
He
Micah
has
Parsons.
sorry, just to add, he has like a really electric personality. And I say this like as right now behind you on my screen, Gerald McCoy is on Good Morning Football. Like he's not quite like that colorful of a character, but like I could see him having some like buzz clips, whatever. Like except like again, I think the overall package is there for him to become a household name, so to speak.
I think that with Parsons, one of the most overrated storylines, and I think I've brought this up before on the podcast, specifically when it's come to like Tony Pollard in the slot. It's like this mythical offseason position change thing where they talked about moving Micah to linebacker or sorry, to defensive and full time. He's not going to be linebacker, even though then that was refuted, right, by him or the
Dan
coaching
Quinn,
staff.
yeah.
It's just so dumb. There's people are like obsessed with position changes. Like there's this off-season storyline. I get nothing's going on, so we talk about it, but like just never even for like 99% of the time it amounts to absolutely nothing meaningful. Like last time around this time last year, people were talking about JJ Arcega-Whiteside moving to tight end. Like you basically
But
play tight end as a wide
they're
receiver
not
anyway.
changing Mozzie's position. They're just,
I'm not talking
not
about
asking.
Mozzie now. This is a pet peeve with Micah that I meant to bring
Oh,
up that we didn't talk about here. This is
I
totally
mean, but
independent of Mozzie.
Micah is the one though. Like if you're like, oh, talking about like a player changing positions, like he kind of
But
did
he's
it.
not
Like,
even
and he,
changing it.
I mean, I don't think he's changing it because like he's already like he played over 80% of his snaps at pass rusher last year. So like there's nothing to change to. Yeah, I think
Right,
Dan Quinn
agree.
just is like
That's my
I think
point,
Dan
though.
Quinn is
Like,
like
this idea of
quit putting
change is
attention on
overrated.
this. I'm
And why
getting a
would you need
tissue.
to change? He's been doing well. Don't change any it's just dumb. People get so obsessed with that. RJ has left the recording premises, for those who are not watching the audio or sorry, the video version, which, by the way, you should and can watch on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube page, which is really the best place to watch it. Uh, or Logging the Boys YouTube page. I always read the comments or try to read the comments on those. So we appreciate those who do the feedback for the show. You can also do that on Apple Podcast. I'm just turning this little break here into an ad, basically. Also, check out Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. If you're looking for some snacks in your life, you can get the highest quality meat snacks possible and at a discount by using discount code BGN15. for 15% off your order. RJ is back now. RJ,
I'm back. Were
welcome
you
back.
talking about how Micah is the player who lives most rent free in your head and how you're
So
obsessed with him?
we are going to go to the step back players, and I think there's a
By the way,
very obvious what.
well, I was gonna say, by the way, so I have a roll of toilet paper.
Hmm.
This is my move when I'm sick. I get a roll of toilet paper and like a grocery bag. You know what I'm saying, and like I just put that with me. I'm just like blowing my nose and stuffing it the whole time. So I'm not sick,
That's a
but this
great
is just an
image for
uncomfortable feeling.
people who really
That's
wanted
what
to
we're
know
here
about
for.
that.
That's
Top
what we're
step
here
back
for.
candidate is Tony Pollard. It's very obvious he's coming off the injury. He basically had a breakout last year. It seems like it's going to be hard for him to match that with the injury coming off of that. Although Mike McCarthy did say he wants to run the ball a lot more, but I think
Oh
the
my gosh.
injury is tough. And I think when the Cowboys inevitably sign Ezekiel Elliott, he's still going to be in the mix as well. So yeah, he's my step back candidate.
You are like talking to a human version of the bag that I fill my tissues with.
You know what's going to
So
happen.
no, I also think I said this then, like it was so dumb that people I'm like were like, oh, McCarthy won, and people are still leaning on that. They literally cut Zeke a week after that. I
He's
mean,
going to be
like
back.
they
He's going to be
I'm
back.
like I disagree, and they literally literally
I think
after
it's
Mike
more
McCarthy said we
likely
want to run the ball, they cut Zeke
each
and traded for
passing day.
Brandon Cooks. But they want to run the ball. I mean, like it's dumb to me. I think the Cowboys don't mind being connected to Zeke in public conversation, but they have moved on. It would be very Cowboys ish, like in terms of brand, to bring him back, but they have
Yes.
moved on. I think it's fair to bring up Tony Pollard. There was a lot of conversation last year about how the coaching staff may or may not have not wanted him to exceed a number of touches in a game because he's not as like durable or blah blah blah
Hmm.
whatever. Obviously, he got hurt in the playoff game, although that wasn't like a result of like wear and tear. It was just an unfortunate thing, the unfortunate tackle, which obviously was a discussion point over the offseason. Um, I mean, I think like if you're looking for candidates to step back, I think that's a fair one. I think you can make
Hmm.
the same sort of argument for Zach Martin that I made for Lane Johnson, right? Like at some point you have to hit a wall. That is one for me. I think and this one bothers me a lot, but it might be DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, like
I thought about him.
he's been quietly very good for a very long time. And again, like you're just like there's just it's been 9 years since the Cowboys. He was the same draft as Zach Martin, actually. I mean, back-to-back picks, and so, I mean, it's hard. I don't have one I feel like passionate about because I mean I could see a number of different options. Again, my face is just like all sorts of falling apart. You could also, if I have to pick one, and I thought about this when I was walking Bear this morning, it's Jaron Curse because
Mm.
I don't want to say he's overhyped, but I mean, there's a lot of like what Dan Quinn has done with him specifically. And I mean, the fact that he has been as great as he has been for the last 2 years has really shut me up. Like I did not see that coming
Well, apparently
whatsoever. And
not.
I'm a big fan of his. But again, the Cowboys are already kind of like planning for life beyond him a little bit with the safety. And they use so
Mm.
many safeties. Like it's just difficult to see that panning out.
Okay. I did think about DeMarcus Lawrence. He's had a lot of those nagging injuries, like ones that haven't been major and kept him out for long stretches. But it feels like he's always like managing injuries throughout the season and just trying to get through. He's obviously a tough player, so he ends up playing. But I do think eventually those are going to take a toll with all the wear and tear, which again kind of fits that Lane Johnson kind of argument if you're looking to see some kind of drop off. Also, if you just look at his production standpoint, he kind of bounced up last year. He had what, like 6.5 sacks after only having, yeah, or he had 3 in 2021. He bounced up to 6 last year. The years prior to 2021, he had 6.5 in 2020, 5 in 2019. He hasn't been in double digits since 2018 when he had 10.5. So, I think it's possible he does take a step down from that 6 that he had last year to maybe something again like 3 or so. I know that was in part because he only played 7 games in 2021, but I could just see his sack production falling off a little bit.
Okay, let's take a break and then do the other teams. Welcome back. Brandon, while we were gone, you told me your favorite thing to do when you're sick,
My
which is
favorite thing to do when I'm sick, which I actually was feeling really sick last week. I think I brought that up on the mixtape, so maybe you caught it from me. It's contagious. Hopefully not. It was really short lived. It was only like a 24-hour kind of thing. But my favorite thing to do, not an ad, not a sponsor, but I like to go to, and shout out to my mom for getting me started on this. Go to Starbucks and you get the medicine ball, which is like the citrus something, something citrus honey tea or whatever, lemon tea. It's on the menu. With it's not medicine ball in the
I
menu.
was about to ask. Like, I didn't know what. So like, it's not called a medicine ball. To be clear, I was
No,
thinking it
let
was
me look up the
like a
exact
ball
name.
that they sold and you like put in a cup of water or something.
No, it is jade citrus mint green tea, but there's like lemon with it. Honey. Here's the official name. Sorry, honey citrus mint tea. That's the thing you want to order if you're sick. Get one of those. I think you'll be feeling better.
Nice. The New York Giants breakthrough step backs. You want to go first? You want me to go first? How you want to do this?
I think my breakout candidate for them. I thought about Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's probably the right pick, and therefore the chalk pick, and therefore I don't want to talk about that as much. He did show some promise last year. Hey, Philip.
There's a cat.
Sorry. Yeah, Philip the cat
Philip?
is meowing. Yeah.
No. What else would he be doing besides meowing? Like, what other audible noises?
Well, he wants to get out, I think. He's upset that the door isn't open. So maybe I'll go do that when you're talking next. But breakout candidates, I'm not going to go Wan'Dale Robinson, even though he showed some promise last year. I'm going to go with Evan Neal, who I think potentially could be on the Andrew Thomas track. Once upon a time, Andrew Thomas in his rookie year was not very good. And it was kind of surprising, because he was a great player in college. And it was like, man, did the Giants blow this pick? Can the Giants ever get offensive line right? And he had a rough rookie year. He only ranked 63rd out of 86 offensive tackles in 2020. But he quickly has clearly become, I think you could argue he might be the top left tackle in the NFC East as a whole, one of the best in the NFL. He was like the third graded offensive tackle by PFF last year. So different people, doesn't just because Andrew Thomas did it doesn't mean Evan Neal will definitely do it. But I liked Evan Neal coming out of Alabama. Some people thought, there's Philip again. Some people thought he could be like the top prospect last year, especially in a weak quarterback draft. He was not. But I do think, even though he was 87th out of 89 offensive tackles last year, I do think having that year under his belt, and he could get better, and he could be kind of a breakthrough player. And I'm going to go let Philip out. So feel free to take this away.
Brandon is letting Philip out. Maybe he'll hold Philip up. I don't know how friendly Philip is. If
No, that's not kind of the vibe.
Yeah. You haven't gone yet, so I don't know why you told me to speak like you were going to leave. There goes Brandon.
I guess I'll turn my
anyway,
camera off. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so Brandon's camera is off. This is just, we're really putting this episode together with duct tape and twigs and glue and things like that. I think that's a good pick. I do think there is an opportunity to become the new like de facto best left tackle in the NFC East, and the Giants have never really been a part of that conversation. I think I hear Brandon coming back. He is back. Oh my gosh. So I was saying, so like a big part of what we've talked about here is like narrative, obviously, like that. And that like obviously kind of goes hand in hand with breakthroughs and step backs and things like that. But for a while, there was like this rotation of like the best left tackle in the division or even the NFL. And it was Jason Peters, Tyron Smith, Trent Williams, right? Like, and the Giants never had a piece of that. Like, you could see them having like the best left tackle. You said it, like the best left tackle in the NFC East, and that being like on its own what like propels this take.
Yeah, so Evan Neal, my top break. I mean, like, come on, he's Alabama offensive lineman. I just think let me look at his age real quick. I should have looked that up before. Is he especially young? He's only he turned 22 in September. He turns 23 in September. So, some more experience, some more growing into his body a little bit more. I think he takes a step forward. Not saying he's going to be like an all-pro player this year. I don't think that. But I think he doesn't need to. If he becomes a good starting right tackle, that's a big jump. And when's the last time the Giants had two good starting tackles? Been a long time. So that'd be a big deal for them.
Maybe not ever in our lifetimes. Like what we would deem as good. Like they've had serviceable tackle play.
You were like
that's
a
good pick
for like the Super Bowls. Like David Deal starting a tackle. You'd like
Will
Beatty was there.
They had more notable like interior play. Like Sean O'Hara is like the name everybody remembers. And who was? It's not Sean O'Hara that's Tom Coughlin's son-in-law, right?
I thought it was.
because they like, and for the younger crowd, their Super Bowl team, at least one of the Super Bowl teams had a
Chris
starting guard
Snee.
that was. Thank you. I was like, yeah, he is literally Tom Coughlin's son-in-law. So that I feel like that was not made a big enough deal. Like, I'm not saying that he wasn't a good player, but like that was a weird thing that really happened. So wow. Okay.
Want me to
I'm
go?
not feeling what? What did you say? What were the words you said with your mouth?
I was going to go to
You
my
mute.
step back, but I guess you didn't say your breakthrough.
No, I didn't.
Breakout.
So mine is
Well,
gonna upset you, I think. Do you hear me? Am I
why?
here?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
Okay. Good. How are you doing?
My breakthrough, again, playing the game, contextually speaking.
It's not a game. This is real life, RJ. This is life or death.
Daniel Jones. Like, I could see Daniel
Breakthrough?
Jones, but like having a more like, so we've done this exercise I don't know how many times. Where does Daniel Jones rank as far as NFC quarterbacks are concerned? He's in the top 5, is he not?
Sure.
Like, I mean, like, I think the top
By
5
default,
is
yes.
it's Hurts, Dak, Cousins, Goff, and Daniel Jones. Like,
No,
right now,
Geno has to be above Daniel Jones.
I mean, okay, well, he's flirting with the area. Like, let me put it this way: would you rather have Daniel Jones or Matthew Stafford?
I mean, it's hard to know, but I mean, I'll
The
probably,
fact
it
that it's hard
depends on
to
the
know,
situation.
yeah,
Well, I
like the
mean, it's
fact that
hard to
it's hard
know
to.
Stafford's injury status. I mean, I don't know. If he's healthy, then
So,
I'm going to take Stafford.
so I don't think this is fair to do, but it is somewhat helpful. So Josh Allen's first season as a full-time starter was 2019. Obviously, they drafted him in 2018. He only played in 12 games, though. So if we're looking at full body of work seasons, in 2019, he threw for just over 3,000 yards, had 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Then next year, 2020, that was the year the Bills lost the AFC Championship game, right, to the Chiefs. The next year, Josh Allen had a big time jump, went to 4,500 yards, literally doubled his passing yardage by 50%, threw 37 touchdowns compared to 20, and only 10 interceptions despite throwing 9 the year before. Obviously, there was all the talk. Well, like, that was the improvement in accuracy as well. Went from 58.8% accuracy, completion, to 69.2% completion. So, like, I could see not Daniel Jones having that kind of bump, but like, we fully acknowledge that Brian Daboll is working magic, and the fact that he got what he did out of Daniel Jones is impressive. And the bar is low to clear as far as elite quarterback play in the NFC. Like, I could totally see Daniel Jones. Like, they're committed to him. Like, Brian Daboll is committed to him. Like, he has a full level of investment in him. Like, I could totally see Daniel Jones becoming like Eli Manning, so to speak, which I mean as a compliment here, not as an insult. We normally
I mean, he better, because they've given him more things to work with. There needs to be a step up from last year to this year in terms of his situation. But for my step back player, I have Daniel Jones, because I think you can easily make the case for it, in the standpoint that, and shout out to good friend Jimmy Kempski here, who did his recent NFC hierarchy rankings, and there was some good notes in there about Daniel Jones, the most conservative quarterback in the NFL last year in terms of intended average air yards at 6.3 yards through the air per throw, and then quote unquote air yards to the sticks. On average, his passes landed 2.8 yards short of the sticks. The Giants offense didn't hit big plays in the passing game last year. They had 28 passing plays of 20 plus yards. That was the fewest in the NFL. Okay, now you can be like, well, they added Darren Waller. They added Jalen Hyatt. There's going to be an uptick in those plays. And I agree that there's the upside for that. But here's the thing. Daniel Jones' turnovers were way down last year. And it's probably not unrelated to him being suddenly really conservative. So the trick here is going to be managing the turnovers relative to the big plays. Obviously, if they can get more big plays, and there's going to be some uptick in turnovers, but it's to what extent. And I think if you look at Daniel Jones' track record, well, you could worry about it might be a big extent, and he might be a quarterback who needs to play super conservative to really keep those down, or else he is fumbling a lot again, or else he is throwing a lot of picks. So I actually have him taking a step back simply from a standpoint of, I think it's going to be hard for him to keep the turnovers down like he did last year, as he's challenged to do more until we see it happen.
So I think that there's a teeny misconception about his turnover thing, and the fact that, like, he was way down last year. Do you know how many interceptions Daniel Jones threw in 2021? So not last year.
I mean, the interceptions haven't always been the killer for him as much
Just
as the
play my game. Play my game, please.
yeah,
How
but the
many
fumbles have
interceptions?
been a huge issue though.
Play my game, please. How many interceptions did he throw in
I'm looking at it
2020?
right now. So he had 7 in 2021, but that was in
He
11 games, mind you.
Right, that's fair. He had 5 last year, right? So, okay, and similarly, from a fumble standpoint, now 11 games versus 16, which is fair to say. In 2021, he had 7 fumbles. Last year, he had 6 fumbles. So,
Mhm.
like again, like the like, whoa, he literally cut down by 3 turnovers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, which are substantial, but like it's not like he went from like Jameis Winston to, like whatever. I mean, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, and so I think that we make a little bit too much out of that molehill into a mountain. Even the fumble number, like the fumble number was obviously ridiculous. His rookie season led the NFL with 19, and then he cut that in half, and which isn't hard to do. But the next year he had 10. So like we have seen improvement in the fumble category, we have seen improvement in the interception category, and we've seen that improvement even prior to Brian Dable's arrival. So again, like I think Daniel Jones is we acknowledge he is athletic. He now has maybe the best supporting cast that he's ever had. He has the best coach and play caller he's ever had. He has the best defense he's ever had. He's in a position in the NFC to succeed more than he's ever been. I mean, like, I'm buying a little bit of the Daniel Jones stock. I admit that it's low, but like I'm buying it right now.
Well, he
So
better
I
step
disagree.
up because if he doesn't, then they just gave a big contract to a player who it could be not great. Who's your step back candidate?
I thought you were gonna take the low hanging fruit, so I'm gonna take it. Like I'm gonna pluck this off for us.
Mm.
How like it has to be Saquon. I'm sorry. Like I mean, look, you and I, we have the egg on our face. Like look at us, we're a bunch of eggheads. You know what I mean? Like that's who we
Mm.
are. But like again, if we're talking step back, dude had 1,300 rushing yards last year. Like he had
Yeah.
over 1,600 total yards last year. I mean, and he had 10 touchdowns last year. Like again, I would love to see Saquon succeed because he's a cool dude and like he's a fun player. And obviously I don't want the Giants to succeed, but he like I have no qualms with Saquon. But that being said, it's just so unlikely. Like he is already the exception. That you know what I'm saying? That like last year was the exception. It was similar to the Adrian Peterson 2012 MVP year. You know what I mean? Like showing up and proving everybody wrong, defying all of the odds, et cetera, et cetera. And good for Saquon. I mean, I hope somebody pays him. I hope the Giants pay him in the future. But I just really, really would not bet on this happening again. I'm not continuing to rediscover the fountain of youth, even though he's already a young player.
The Giants aren't betting on it, at least to this point. I mean, they tagged him, and they've
Right.
been. It seems like they've been pretty reluctant to give. And they not only did they tag him, but they really wanted to tag him. In that, like, they didn't want to pay, or they didn't want to have to tag Daniel Jones because they wanted to be able to use that option on Saquon. Because I think rightfully so, they acknowledge there's still value in having Saquon here in 2023. Like we can get one more year, good year probably out of him potentially. But beyond that, we don't really want to be paying for his 2025 season and his 2026 season. Maybe 2024 will work out too. They could always tag him again if he has a good year and they really want to keep him around another year. Although I'm sure things would get complicated a little bit at that point. But still an option available to them. So yeah, I mean, I did think about Saquon. That was not on my brain, but we've already like done the anti-Saquon thing here so much that
And
I felt bored
yeah.
talking about it. So I'm fine with you taking it.
Okay. The Washington Commanders,
I'm in Commander's
who
territory, RJ.
who I guess technically finally have a new owner. I know I mean, like
It's
again,
not approved yet officially.
it's just it's so complicated that the way all this happens. But they're about to have a new owner. My actually a quick question before we pick these. How would you feel about them changing names again? I think they should. I'm not a fan of Commanders. You know what I mean? Like I'm
They
like
should.
go all in with the new
Yeah.
era. I'm super fine with that.
Isn't that weird? Like, new mascot, new name. Now we have a new owner. It's like, well, shouldn't the new owner have decided that?
Okay. Breakthrough. I'll go first. Now I will say this is hard because it's contingent upon stable quarterback play, but my answer is Jahan Dotson. And so
Yeah.
I don't believe in Sam Howell. But Jahan Dotson, I think I was like, okay, you took Jahan Dotson last year. Kind of, got some more egg on my face. Got a lot of egg happening here. Maybe that's what's causing the allergies, is like all the egg on
Wow.
my face. But
Well, yeah, you get salmonella poisoning. You don't want that.
wow.
What's your favorite kind of egg preparation?
Over medium.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good one.
I want a little bit of yolk. I don't like super runny. I think people that like super runny eggs are weird. I'm sorry. Like, why do you want to drink them? You want a straw? Like what?
That's a funny way to put it. You want to drink your eggs.
And
Rocky did.
scramble to me is so boring. Like, do you eat
It's
like
pretty boring.
it's also difficult to eat. Like, are you poking at it with the fork? Are you scooping it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Do
so
both.
not a fan. I like a good over medium egg in a sandwich. So when I take the bite, the yolk
Sure.
kind of like surrounds the bread. So anyway, Jahan
Well, I
Dotson.
think poached
Wow,
is really good. I'm gonna go
that's
with
fine.
poached.
I'm not a fan of deviled eggs.
No, definitely not. That's
Yeah.
disgusting. I don't like cold
Uh,
savory in general.
Right. Um, 12 games last year for Jahan Dotson, 35 catches, 523 yards, 7 touchdowns. The
Hmm.
opportunity is going to be there. I know we both are fans of Terry McLaurin. They sneakily have one of the better wide receiver duos in the NFL. Like, that's what we've said. Like, they find stable quarterback play. I know Jacoby Brissett's there now. You know what I mean? Whatever. But like,
Hmm.
I'm a fan. I mean, Jahan Dotson, I could totally see having like 1,000 yards quietly and then turning into what Terry McLaurin was at the beginning of his career.
They have Terry McLaurin, they have Christian McCaffrey, so they're and Curtis Samuel, so they're firing on all cylinders. I mean, yeah, Dotson would have had like okay, he only had 523 yards last year, but he missed time due to an
Right.
injury. And I think, assuming he's able to stay healthy, I think he's going to put up big numbers. Yeah, and I think he did that last year with not great quarterbacks, and then Wentz and Heineke. So I'm not really too worried about him being quarterback dependent. I think he's going to be able to get his, even with McLaurin on the team. So I did have Dotson here as well. If I'm going to honorable mention or just not trying to only agree with you, I did put Brian Robinson down. I do think, him having a normal offseason and again not being shot could be like a really big deal. It's crazy that he kind of was able to have any kind of success that he did last year after that, not only from a physical standpoint, but think of that
Totally.
like, psychologically. You were shot. That is extremely traumatic, and could have been at the end of his life. So I think being in a more normal place, and kind of being on a team. I mean, so maybe it doesn't work out so much from a game script standpoint. If we think the Commanders are going to be as bad as we think they are, then it could be tough for them to run the ball as much as it might take for him to break out. But I'm interested to see what he can do in year two, and to the point of game script. That's why another reason why Dotson could be a big breakout player is because the Commanders should be down a lot of these games. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. But yeah, I think for as much as we are not bullish by any means on the Commanders, I do think they have like some interesting young players on their roster that you look at and it's like you're not really scared of it now, but you're like, okay, if they kind of can get the right quarterback in place, maybe they have enough to work with here and surround him eventually.
I agree with that. I mean, but they have ignored the most important position in the game. But
Yep.
Ron Rivera just needs more time. Okay, step back candidates. Mine is kind of weird.
Hmm.
But I think Chase Young is going to float into like total, obscurity.
What's he going to step back from?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think like Chase Young will be cut next offseason, and then like
Wow.
Chase Young is the new Jadeveon Clowney, or not cut. He just won't have his won't
Yeah.
get a new contract with the Commanders. Like he'll be the new Jadeveon Clowney. Like, oh, should we get Clowney? Should we get Chase Young? Like that's the
That's a
like
good
path
take.
he's on.
Yeah.
And so like like because I'm even using myself as an example. When they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, like my initial like superficial level response is like, wow, that's crazy. But like I know that's not crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but you can't get past that because they took him 2nd overall. He was this incredibly productive college player, and he wasn't just an incredibly productive college player. He was really good. Like he was an amazing rookie. You know what I'm saying? Like we
Yeah.
kind of thought like, man, we're a little bit screwed here. Like they kind of figured this out. Maybe Commanders just never pick somebody at number 2 overall again. Like you're proving they can have amazing rookie seasons and then just kind of never really work out for you after that. But I know we've played this game before, so I'm not going to make you guess. He played 3 games last year and 9 the year before. He has played in 12 games over the last 2 years. And so like I think he might be like the same dude, even if he plays double-digit games. Like that's who he is at this point in time. Like he's played no football basically for 2 years. I mean, so I think he floats into obscurity. I think there's just a lot of name value there.
Yeah, it's hard to
Plus, there
see
aren't a lot of
stepping.
step back candidates. Like they're really bad. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult
I
to
think
find
there's
other people further back.
I'm happy. I'm confident in mine, which I'll get to. But yeah, I think with Chase Young, it's impossible to give him the benefit of the doubt. You can't just talk about the pedigree. I think people get sucked into pedigree way too much. Like at some point, you have to look at the reality of what's happening now, and not just the fact that he was this high pick years ago. Like that doesn't mean anything necessarily. There's players all the time who get drafted high and then turn out to be bust. So like just because he was highly thought of doesn't mean it's going to pan out. Um, and I thought last year the handling of his return was really weird and also very bad signal for the rest of his career. Because remember that it was like, oh, he's eligible, but he's still not practicing. And then they use that excuse 1 week, oh, he's sick, so he can't play.
Well,
But then
remember,
weeks,
I'm sorry, they acted like he was just going to be on PUP. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this
yep,
is just like a beginning of the season
right.
thing. You know what I mean? And like, it was a disaster. Right.
Yes, it's one of those situations where, like, I guess, like the year that or whatever that one season Andrew Luck missed the whole year or a lot of time. Remember, like they were like, "Oh,
Right.
don't worry about it. Like he's gonna come back." It's like one of those things where they just keep putting it off, but it's
Like
clearly
Kawhi
like,
with the Spurs, that hurt me deeply. By
yep,
the way,
it's clearly
Wemby,
way worse.
baby, let's
Huh?
go.
Oh, okay,
Wemby,
no one cares.
huh?
I mean, good for the Spurs. I don't really care. I don't hate the Spurs. They're fine.
They-
Uh,
I feel like they're my only team that I root for that you like respect. Like, I feel like all the other teams I root for you hate on some level.
probably, yeah, probably, yeah. I
But
think
I feel
so.
like the Spurs have like worldwide respect. Like there's nobody who hates the Spurs for like sound reasons. I mean, it's just like, oh, they beat my team or whatever. So,
Yeah,
but anyway,
I don't mind the Spurs. So I think, yeah, Chase Young not in the best spot. My step back player for the Commanders is Deron Payne because we're talking about a guy who had 11 and a half sacks last year after only having 14 and a half in his first 4 years combined. He could still have a good year next year and it'd still be a big step back. Like that's just, it's not just like saying he's going to step back in production, he's the step back, but it's like there's going to be, I feel like, a significant drop off from 11 and a half sacks. Like if I could bet on him not having double digit sacks, that'd be a great bet. I feel like I would want to do, and a lot of people would do, because it's just hard to get to that point again. I do think you have to. I don't know Deron Payne, at all when it comes to a personal level, but looking at the history of the Washington football franchise, they've handed out some deals to players on contract years before, and it hasn't always aged well. And I wonder if there is some of that going on. A certain player like really elevates their game in their contract year, and then you kind of don't see that same drive or hunger after they get paid. So yeah, I have him dropping off after having 11 and a half sacks last year.
I think that's a common theme with some of the names we've talked about is just like hitting a wall, and like that's where Deron Payne is at, right? Like you can't continue to be good or great or whatever forever. Like that just so like any kind of regression is technically a step back, however we define that to be. So like I think that's a fair pick in that sense. I do think it's hard to pick. Like I think that like there's nowhere to go but up for the Commanders. So like
Right.
even Deron Payne like regressing, I don't think is like the biggest deal. I don't think anybody's like afraid of that. Like the other hit the wall players we mentioned, like if Demarcus Lawrence or Lane Johnson regressed, it would be like seismic for their teams. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't necessarily be for the Commanders. It's just kind of who they are.
I think I was looking at their offensive line, maybe like Charles Leno, Andrew Norwell. Those are like aging vets they could take. One of those guys could take. And also, Andrew Norwell had some really bad games last year, especially against the Eagles. Like Javon Hargrave was like eating his lunch. So
Right.
there could be some trouble there.
Last thing before we get out of here, and I go ice my face. This just happened while we were recording, and again, we're
What?
recording early Tuesday morning, earlier than usual. NFL owners approved the resolution to put the ball on the 25-yard line following a fair catch on a kickoff specifically. Special teams coordinators and special teams specialists around the NFL were heavily opposed to this,
Wait,
but
what's
this is
the difference here from normal?
it was the 20. Like on kickoffs, like so, like if there was I believe this is correct. If there was a touchback, like if the ball went through the end zone on the kickoff, you started at the 25-yard line. Now, if you call for a fair catch, it also starts at the 25-yard line. You get what I'm saying?
At any point, so you can just
No, on a kickoff. So like
yeah.
if you call for a fair catch at the 1-yard line or
Oh,
in the
so you
middle
can't
of
do
the
the
end,
mortar kicks anymore, where you're trying to kick like to the two. You're trying to get the ball to like the 2 yard line or 1 yard line, so they have to take it out. They
right?
can't take the touchback. So, but now they can just call a fair catch at that point from the
Correct.
two,
Now,
and it
now, now,
goes to the
now,
25.
calling for a fair catch is a variable. They can call for
Okay,
a fair
so
catch, and that puts the ball at the 25-yard line.
they took away the mortar kicks, basically. That's what they're saying.
I've never heard that term, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to call it like the strategy of like I don't maybe not like
Do
a
you remember
pooch
when
kick,
that
but
kick happened to the in an Eagles Cowboys game? What was it in 20? I forget what it was, but there
um,
was a short kickoff,
I
and
remember Tony Pollard was in 2020 really struggling at handling kickoffs, and it was things like that. Like they were, special teams coaches were kind of like landing the ball right in front of the goal line to force him to have to bring it out because he was really
Mhm.
struggling to gauge things. There was a game in Seattle, I think, where he kind of like foolishly let it bounce around thinking it was going to fall out of bounds or trickle out the back of the end zone, and it didn't. And then he had to pick it up and he got to like the 4-yard line out of the like chaos and panic. Now, though, to the point you just mentioned, you, Tony Pollard, or whoever can call for a fair catch and you get the ball at the 25-yard line.
Yeah, I forget, what was it, 20? I forget what it was, but there was an Eagles-Cowboys game where like ball took a super weird bounce and the Cowboys recovered the kickoff. And it was just like the Eagles were not going to win that game. Maybe it was the 20.
I think you're thinking of the
14.
Who was the Eagles linebacker that said that they choke or whatever?
No, that was in Dallas. This game was in Philly.
In Philly. The game I always think about along those lines, this is very different. It was, I think, 2008 Monday Night Football, Steelers Dolphins. There was like a punt. I don't know if you remember this. That like it was like soaking wet and it just like stuck in the ground. I always remember that. But anyway, the value of special teams returners is like all time low. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is a returner adding to your game? Like, you don't have to call for a fair catch, but like, if you weigh the pros and cons, like it's like call. Hey, there's Philip's dad, I assume.
Where?
Presume behind you.
Where?
I don't know if this is the bit you're doing.
What are you talking about?
Somebody just walked into the room that you're in.
I don't see anyone.
I don't know if this is part of the bit. Like, you're somebody who like nobody knows where the bit starts and ends, but somebody walked in. Somebody walked in and waved.
Where?
Behind you. Go read the YouTube comments when we're done, and everybody, will tell you that somebody walked in. So
remember the wedding? Have you ever seen the wedding photo of the couple and there's like that demon man in the middle?
No.
There's like this picture of a couple and they're just like posed together where they're like there's like their faces are close or something, and there's like this little space in between, and it looks like there's like someone there. There isn't, clearly, because you look at the rest of the picture and like there isn't room for someone like that, but it's really bizarre. You gotta look that up. It's pretty freaky.
Well, I'm not gonna look it up. But
I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, by the way, last night.
Oh yeah. Was it good?
I think it was a little long. Like, not long in terms of just the runtime, in terms of like longer than it needed to be.
Okay. I really want to see the Super Mario movie.
I want to see that too.
Yeah.
Did you see someone uploaded it to Twitter?
I've seen like that account, I think, that just tweets like
movies.
The full whatever, like blah blah blah. Like, I've seen that floating around too.
Thanks, Elon.
I can't. What did I watch this weekend? That was really nothing. Nothing great. So I'm finishing up season 4 of Drive to Survive. I got that going on. So congrats to me. Oh, this week, season finale of Survivor and series finale of Succession.
Yeah.
You don't watch Succession, but who wins Survivor? And let's leave after we pick.
Who wins Survivor?
The final 6, final 5.
I'm gonna say
we've got Jam, Carolyn, Carson, Jamie, and
Heidi.
No, and
Jamie's out.
Oh, okay. Heidi and Lauren.
Spoiler alert,
and Lauren.
It was last week.
Yeah, you forgot Lauren. So who wins?
Lauren. Oh yeah. I'm gonna say Jam.
I think if Jam makes final, he wins. Like, I think Jam can sway the jury.
I genuinely do want to see the Tika 3 make it, because I think that would be like one of the best. It would just be one of the best final 3s ever. And you could. I want to go into the final 3 thinking anyone could win, because I think anyone could. I think Jam would win, but I think like there is a scenario, or at least it's not going to be like 7-1 or whatever the vote split is. It'll be like 4-3-1 or whatever. Like, I think it could be a lot close. I want it to be very close.
I think that people think Carson can win, but I think if it's the Tika 3, I think Carson gives the worst speech of the 3, or the least compelling speech. I think Carolyn and Jam would be way more charismatic and charming than he would be.
I think
because they're such great characters.
I think he could do great, and I think it's just tough as a younger person for him to get that kind of respect from like older people. I just don't think they're, it's not. I'm saying it could be an unfair bias. It could also be deserved. More than one.
Would you have voted Carolyn out if you had been Carson and Jam?
I feel like there's no reason for Carson to keep Carolyn around. I don't get why he's keeping her around, but I don't care just about the mechanics at this point. I just want to see the most compelling thing, an interesting thing. I think the most interesting thing from an entertainment standpoint is all 3 of them making it.
Okay, that was Survivor Talk here on the NFC East Mixtape. And with that, Brandon, the tribe has spoken. Give us your 3 favorite things about fire. And the
3
spirit
favorite
of Jeff
things about
Probst.
fire. I love
Look
staring
behind you again.
into a
Behind you
fire.
again.
Where? Oh,
Yeah.
is that who was there earlier?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Is that Phillips, Dad?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was saying. And you were like, what? You doing the bit. The bit was dumb.
It's Holden, actually.
That's Holden?
Yeah.
Holden, maybe get your own ride to DC. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Anyway.
Hey, can you ask Holden how it feels to root for teams that lose in the playoffs all the time?
I like looking at fire. I think it's relaxing, nice. I like the smoke smell sometimes. Not like when you're like breathing smoke and inhaling in your face, but like afterwards when you like you smell your like coat after like a winter fire and it's that hearty wood or fire smell. And I like that you can cook on it.
The Denver Broncos just released Brandon McManus.
Temple Zone. I like when you like if you roast a hot dog on an open flame, it's a great time.
I want Brandon McManus to be the Cowboys kicker. Okay. That's what I want.
Let's wrap this up.
Shout out to Fire. Shout out to Blink 182.
Shout out to Fire.
And shout out to
an arsonist.
Shout out to the Tika 3.